After getting off to a concerning 1-4 start to begin the new NBA season, the Toronto Raptors had to send a strong message to their fan base and a strong message to the rest of the NBA as well to let them know that this was not going to be the case for their season. And since that 1-4 start, the Toronto Raptors, they've been a completely different team as they won 11 out of their last 12 ball games. They're also riding an 8-game winning streak, and they jumped all the way up to second place in the Eastern Conference with a record of 13-5. And the brightest sign of the Toronto Raptors so far this season is that they have an identity that they can hang their hats on, and this is the identity that they promised their fan base and organization during the offseason, that they're going to be a defensive first team. And why I said that 1-4 start was a little bit concerning is because in all of those games, all of those losses, all 5 of those games, the Toronto Raptors, they gave up at least 118 points. Most of the time, their opponents were going over 120. So they delivered on their promise after that 1-4 start, and they've been playing some amazing defense. And I talked about them not too long ago, I want to say 2 videos ago, and that ramp up on the defensive side of the ball was emphasized. And looking at where they were ranking in defensive rating, they were ranked at 12. Now, at this point in their winning streak, or at this point in the season, they've jumped all the way up to 7th in the NBA in defensive rating. So they're getting stronger on that side of the basketball each and every game. And I love that this is the identity that the Toronto Raptors decided to take on for this season, a defensive first team. And that's the type of team that they were when they won their championship in 2019. And it makes so much sense why they've been able to ramp it up so quickly on the defensive side of the ball, because they have one of the best defensive talents in the NBA, and that's Scottie Barnes. He's physically gifted, standing at about 6'7", 6'8", with a nasty 7'2" wingspan, and he has supreme athleticism. At that size and with that length, he's able to pick up full court. He can play on the ball defense. He's comfortable with guarding any position on the basketball court, and that's just his own ball defense, but he also generates so many plays as a help defender, whether it's getting steals, whether it's, rotating down to protect the rim and block shots. And with the player that he is on the defensive side of the ball, offensively as well, but it gives the Toronto Raptors so much lineup versatility. And lineup versatility is one of the biggest weapons that the Toronto Raptors possess right now, especially with what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball and with the collection of players that they have on their team, with all of them possessing, or I should say a lot of them possessing, tremendous size, athleticism, and length. It allows them to put up a bunch of different combinations out there and adapt to in-game situations. When we look at who they have in the front court, looking at their big man, Jakob Poeltl, and then looking at Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram, tremendous length in the front court. And then we start to look at their wings and we look at their guards. Those guys have some decent size on them for their position as well. When we look at Grady Dick and Colin Murray Boyles, both standing at 6'7". RJ Barrett is 6'6", and even your point guard Emmanuel Quickly standing at 6'4". That's on the taller side for a point guard position. So with all of this length and all of these athletes, the Toronto Raptors, they can put out lineups to where if they need to go super big and they need to crowd the passing lanes and they need to crowd the paint to make it hard for the opposing teams to penetrate the defense, and then if they need to go into a small ball lineup and they need to put speed on the court to where they can switch everything and irritate the defense in that fashion, they can do so. And they also have a really good small ball 4/5 man, and Sandro, he's playing some really good basketball this season for the Toronto Raptors. He's another guy that's giving them a lot of lineup versatility. So they have that working in their favor on the defensive side of the ball, the stud that Scottie Barnes is, and then just a great coaching job going on for the Toronto Raptors right now. Like I mentioned this last time, but Coach Darko, he's doing a great job putting out different lineup combinations for the Toronto Raptors. And another area that I think they're doing so well in that's not getting talked about that much, and I'm not going straight into the offense, but just want to talk about the efficiency of the Toronto Raptors and how we look at their defense. Their defense might not be considered the flashiest, but they play smart. They play smart defense, and they get just enough takeaways to where they're they're going to be winning the turnover battle. And this goes into their efficiency. We look at the Toronto Raptors, they do a great job of taking care of the basketball. One of the best assist to turnover ratios in the NBA. They're only giving up about 13 turnovers a game, but they're averaging 12 steals per game, which makes it look like they're just averaging 1 turnover a game. So I think that's big time. They're playing tremendous defense, and then they're also taking care of the basketball while also still generating turnovers and takeaways in the process. I think that is big time. And also looking into that efficiency, they're one of the best teams in the NBA in overall field goal percentage. They rank 3rd in that category, shooting 50% from the field. This is another thing that adds fuel to that defense. When they take care of the basketball and when they also take high percentage shots and knock them down, it makes it even tougher and puts more pressure on the opposing team's offense to score on a defense that's already playing at a tough level. So I thought I'd mention that to you guys as well. In another area I think the Toronto Raptors are doing so well in, and this actually ties together both the offensive and the defensive side of the ball, but I think they've been such a well-coached, high IQ, efficient basketball team this season. And the Raptors, we just talked about their defense, but they don't have the most flashiest defense. They're not getting a ton of blocks per game, but they do enough, well, I should say they play great defense, and they get enough takeaways to where they're going to be winning the turnover battle on most nights. The Toronto Raptors, they're one of the best teams in the NBA at taking care of the basketball. They rank 5th in the NBA in turnovers, which is a good thing. They're only getting 13 turnovers a game, and they're 12th in the NBA in steals per game. So they're getting at least 9 of those possessions back by getting 9 steals per game. So I think they're really good in that area of taking care of the basketball, playing good defense, getting stops, and still getting enough steals to win the turnover battle because their turnover count is so low on the offensive side of the ball. And then they're a team that take very high percentage shots. They're one of the best offenses in the NBA. They don't take many 3-pointers, but they knock them down at a very high rate. They're knocking down 37% of their threes, and they're one of the best shooting teams overall in the NBA. The Toronto Raptors, they're 3rd in the NBA in field goal percentage, and they're shooting it right at 50% per game. So they're really taking high percentage shots, and this is why I said they're so efficient. And their efficiency leads to even more pressure on the opposing teams because they're already playing good defense. They're not turning the basketball over, so it puts even more pressure on the opposing offense to keep scoring the basketball. So the Toronto Raptors, they have so many ways that they could weigh you down because their offense is even better than they're playing even better, at least statistically they are. They're playing even better on the offensive side of the ball. Right now they rank 5th in the NBA in offensive rating, and they're averaging 120 points per game. And just like with the assists, it's the same thing with the scoring. It's not one guy that's doing majority of the damage for the Toronto Raptors, but they have a very spread out attack. The team high in points is Brandon Ingram, but it's just 21.5 points per game. There's not a 25 points per game scorer on the team or a 30 points per game scorer on the team. Instead, they have 6 guys averaging double digits, and then they have 3 guys averaging at least 19 or more points per game: RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes, and Brandon Ingram. So this makes the Toronto Raptors, everyone on their offense is a threat. The fact that they're averaging the 2nd most assists in the NBA and they don't have a quote-unquote pure playmaker, pure point guard on their team is very telling. And once again, I just think Coach Darko, he deserves a lot of credit for being able to instill that type of offense into his team. And then the addition of Brandon Ingram is exactly what the Toronto Raptors needed. They needed another offensive hub. And I said this in the last Toronto Raptors video, the addition of him is so important because now you have that championship recipe. You have 2 players on your team that when you can take one or the other off of the court, you know you're going to be able to still generate good looks for that player, and that player is going to be able to generate good looks for the other 4 teammates that he has around him. And I think the Toronto Raptors, they have that, and they have it on both sides of the ball with Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes. And then when Scottie Barnes is out there on the court for the Toronto Raptors, they are a very nasty defensive team. But that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man. And that's curtains.